My name is Jacob Larson. I am a Highland breeder who started in 1996 with my parents in Washington State. And we started just raising Highland cattle for beef and morphed into a breeding stock production over the years. But that was a very gradual process for us. And so that's kind of how we got started, just like the way they looked. We wanted something hardy. We lived in a mountain area, and it was very important for us to have mountain cattle that could survive in cold conditions and 3-4 feet of snow. And so that was initially what drew us to the breed. Well, my goals in breeding them are to raise the best Highland cattle that I can. And when I say best, some people approach this in a progressive mindset. So the idea being that we can get better and better and better and better indefinitely. I don't know that it works precisely like that. In my opinion, in my breeding efforts, I am trying to maximize the traits, the unique strengths of the breed. So I believe our breed, the Highland breed, has a lot to offer. It has some advantages that are really niche market advantages, primarily above and beyond any other breed on earth. And so in breeding Highland cattle, I want to maximize those traits. I can think of so many different stories. It's very difficult to choose. A lot of the most memorable ones are the most pleasurable or the most painful. And so, most pleasurable, of course, we all love winning, and some of my fondest memories are winning national championships and that sort of thing. Some of my worst memories, though, really stick with me too. I remember as a teen one time, for example, somebody had asked me to show their 2-year-old bull here at the national show, and they were elderly and they didn't want to handle him, and I was not very big at the time. Like, I was a young teen, 13, 14. So I took this big 2-year-old bull out in the show ring, did great with him all the way through the show, except for the last few steps going out of the ring. And a bull came running up behind him, and he turned about as fast as he possibly could, and his horn just about went right through my spine. It was just knocked the wind clean out of me, and I couldn't breathe, right? If you've ever had the wind knocked out of you. But yeah, so experiences like that, yeah. I think for a new breeder, a lot of new breeders are getting into Highlands because they like the way they look, and don't want to discredit that. Beauty is a really important thing, I think, for our breed. But I would say educate yourself. Don't go buying cattle before you've done a lot of work talking to people. There are good resources. The National Association has put out a lot of good resources. Highland Breeders Guide, various videos online and through ACA, and just talk to longtime breeders. So, and that's a mistake we made when we were first getting into it, as it was a totally subjective thing. We're just going out there. I think that's a good one. And we ended up with some that were kind of average to less than average. And if you start like that, it's a long road to improve those cattle. And that's what we did, is we bred them up until we got where we wanted to be. It can be done, but it takes a lot of time and effort. So you're better off investing in knowledge and education up front and making smarter choices. So I'll address the hope part first. I think that I'm seeing a really promising trend in the breed right now. When we first got into Highland cattle, it seemed like half the farms we visited, we wouldn't want to buy a single animal there. The quality was just so low, and people were registering Highland cattle that really should not have been registered. It still happens today, of course, but I think that there's been a lot of improvement in the lower end of the breed in the United States. So my hope is to see the Highland breed in the US come to a higher average of quality. And it is getting better and better. So I'm really excited about that. I spent 7 months interning with Highland breeders in Scotland and England. And my experience there was that their quality on average is far higher than ours. So if we were to go head to head with them in a show, we might still beat them or they might beat us. The top end is very similar, but the bottom end of their cattle is way higher than our bottom end. So I'm seeing a hopeful trend in the breed in the US in general, and I hope that continues. To address the fear, I would say that it's kind of like my hope in that I want to see the top end shaped in the right way. So again, looking at the breed as a whole, I would like to see the breed remain very true to the breed standard, to traditional Highland trait, especially in characteristics of beauty and quality in feed conversion, calf production, maternal traits. That is an area where I think that our show ring, while it's an advantage in some ways, can also be a detraction, especially as we pursue goals that may not be Highland goals. We get Highland judges who don't know our breed, and we start to cater to those judges' tastes. I think we can start to go down a trail that leans harder and harder towards higher performance cattle, and less of the traditional type extreme maternal breed that they have always been. They're renowned in Scotland as that cow that can go up on the hill and live on very little and produce the most calf in those conditions. And I think that's a strong advantage that we need to maintain, is treat them very much like a maternal breed. And we want that carcass in there too. We can select that way, but we don't need, in my opinion, to get these cattle so extreme that we lose a lot of the attributes of the breed. So I want to see some caution in the top end, the progressive end of our breed as well. So I'd like to be a part of the movement ongoing to increase the quality of the U.S. cattle on average. The way I'm personally approaching that is just to take the 22 years of showing cattle and like 26 years of raising cattle, all the experience that I have, and try to impart some of that to new breeders and people who are trying to make selection decisions, breeding decisions, marketing decisions. I want to be a resource to help people in the breed just have a leg up. We need as many resources as we can, and so if I can be a part of that whole, I would love to really contribute in that way. So I'm putting myself out there as a consultant for the Highland breed and hoping to interact quite a lot in the coming years. So another thing that I think needs to be addressed in the breed is the price of cattle. So this is actually a hopeful trend. I see that our prices are improving, and I'm really excited about that in recent years. When we first started coming out to the national show and when we were buying cattle ourselves, they were going for less than $1,000 for a weanling, and the national show, your division winners were going for like $2,000, $3,000, and you couldn't sell a grand champion for more than $5 probably. And in recent years, that's about doubled, and that's really good. There's some inflation, of course, but I think we're starting to get fairer prices for our cattle. I think it needs to go up even more, and the reason being, current beef prices are such that you can't hardly justify selling a good prospect bull and not just castrate him, because you can get about the same price for him in beef, and it shouldn't be that way. This is something I'd really like to emphasize to new breeders is that we need to be thinking about bulls in a different way. The Highland breed doesn't think about bulls like the rest of the cattle world really does, in my opinion. The rest of the cattle world puts a heavy emphasis on sire genetics because it is half of your genetic input in your herd. So when we're talking about buying a prospect bull, or bull of any age for that matter, I really believe that those should be going for at least double beef prices, and that's just a starting place, and that's just to really give them that due recognition. I think that this is a quality sire that is way better than beef quality. I think our national sale ought to reflect that, and we ought to, as breeders, kind of hold the bar a little higher